That Ornstein tweet came out, I dropped to my knees. You just like, it's another thing. It is.
As fans, you don't want to think that you're potentially smarter than the club. But I wonder how excited I'll be when we play Leicester and we're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go.
Like Clive said, there is a level of excitement, I suppose, about finding out what the solution's going to be.
There are times where sometimes young stars can emerge and can be, diamonds in the rough that can be refined.
We've still got Declan Rice and Gabriel, so we can just win as many corners as possible. There are all sorts of means of winning those corners.
This is the moment, and they know it.
The gap is closed. If it's closed up after the next 4 to 5 games, I think Arsenal will be in a very interesting position with likely by that point Martinelli back and very close to having Bukayo Saka back as well.
We've still got the ace up the sleeve almost of going to Anfield, which is by no means a guaranteed win or anything, but it's an opportunity. I think we just ride it until the wheels fall off.
Turns out Dubai wasn't such a fitness retreat this year after all, with Kai Havertz now out for the season. I'm Talia Lazarus, and this is Inside Gooners. So joining me today are Arsenal Vision podcaster Clive Palmer, Football.London's Tom Canton, and Arsenal TikTok star Rory Talks Football. Oh, Rory, you excited? Big smile on your face there.
I'm very excited. I've
TikTok
never
star.
been called a TikTok star either. Many names, but not that.
Well, now you have. Welcome to the show. But let's go straight into some potentially season-defining news with the Kai Havertz injury, which we all found out about yesterday. And just when we all thought we were probably out of it, they do pull us back in, don't they, the Premier League, with Everton snatching a dramatic draw against Liverpool. So, Clive, is it back on?
Absolutely.
Good.
We've got no problems at all. It's going to be a smooth run in now. I think yesterday it was interesting watching the timeline of the day as the news was broke around the injury, and just like an explosion of anger. And I knew it. I knew he was going to get injured. Everyone was so right about the injury situation going forward. And then we're thinking, that's it, I'm going to disconnect from this. It's all going to go wrong. And then James Tarkowski comes out with a rocket at the last second. And suddenly today we're all looking at the next articles and we're back in the room again. So, yeah, it's been a strange up and down emotional day.
Oh, this is what football does, though. So,
Yeah.
But we are going to talk more about that game and the title race a bit later. But let's go into the devastating Kai news. He looks like he's likely to miss the rest of the season. So do we think the season's recoverable from here?
I think it's going to be really, really hard. I love the optimism, and I'm certainly I'll buy into it as well. But when that news was broken by David Ornstein yesterday, it was a real gut punch, I think, because while we knew hamstring injuries can be, severe in cases, and certainly when you hear it happening in training, you don't assume them to be too serious. Those in-game injuries, you tend to be like the Saka one we experienced earlier in the season at Crystal Palace. You expect them to be worse. So when it was like, Havertz has got an injury in training, it's like, okay, he's going to miss maybe a couple of games and be back. And then you see that come up on your phone and you're thinking, wow, now we are in big, big trouble. And of course, it comes just 8 days after Arteta said in a press conference that he's genetically a monster and can carry the weight for the rest of the season. And it makes it look very bad, rightfully so, on the club, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think because we all saw it coming, I feel like that always makes it look worse for the club or whoever's involved. If the fans, who are meant to be, we're not meant to know what's going to happen, and for us to predict it, and then for it to happen, especially as kind of almost dramatically as it has happened with Martinelli and Havertz both being out. It is. I mean, that Ornstein tweet came out, I dropped to my knees. You just like, it's another thing. It is. It's so painful, and especially because the whole season it's felt like it's been one step forward, one step back, one step forward, and that's another step back. And look, we'll see how we deal with it, but it's a gut punch.
I mean, it really is. I've said this so many times, but it has literally been injury after injury after injury after injury. Fabrizio Romano tweeted this morning that no contacts or approaches made by Arsenal with free agents so far following Havertz's injury. Arteta determined to find solutions internally while staff keeps waiting for Bukayo Saka and Martinelli back. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's any free agents out there. I mean, I'm available. You don't want to see me out there, that's for sure. So I wouldn't expect any sort of free agents. I mean, there's so many ways you can go with this. I mean, there was a period in the window to bring back Fabio Vieira, for example. and they turned against that. Now, he's not tearing up trees at Porto, but he's a senior player and he could have done a job. I do think the reason, as Rory was saying, as fans, you don't want to think that you're potentially smarter than the club. Like, you don't want to think that. You think you are, but you're not really. But with the Havertz one, for anyone who's been to the games and seen him after the games and see the work that he puts in, this was one player that maybe seduced you into feeling he was indestructible, but he's just a human being. And yes, he has a level of minutes around him, but look at the absolute sprinting power and distance covered. He's like number 2 in the league for distance covered. So this was in the post. And I do feel if fans can find that out, then we should have risk managed that situation a little bit better. And it is a concern. However, on the flip side of that coin, I'm actually tactically quite excited about what we do. Because I live in the solutions world, and I think it's really going to be interesting. I've got a couple in my own mind, I'm sure you guys have, and I'm excited about that. But I wonder how excited I'll be when we play Leicester and we're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go. I wonder how excited I'll be then, and I think that's going to be the real test of the next step.
So then, speaking of that, do we literally have to play a front three of Sterling, Trossard and Ethan Nwaneri for the next month or so?
No, we don't have to do that.
Very up front?
Well, I think that there's different options that Arteta has got. You know, we're not going to go into the free agent market and, you know, having, like I think a million other Arsenal fans perusing that list on the websites that provide the list of who's available. I don't think there's really anybody that turns Arsenal from where we are now into a team that's suddenly going to beat Liverpool to the title. And in these moments, there are times where sometimes young stars can emerge and can be, you know, diamonds in the rough that can be refined. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Ethan Nwaneri in particular, I think, during this period to not just cover the goals that we lose in Havertz, but that what we've already lost in Martinelli and, of course, Saka as well. And he's done that to an extent. He's one of Arsenal's top scorers this season and scored some brilliant goals in a very characteristic ways that teams can't seem to really stop. And that's a great trait to have. I think that what Arteta could do, though, is what we've seen in the past when he first came into the club is change the structure, change the system, change the formation. Because I think you're right, Rory, to suggest that we assume that it'll be Nwaneri, Sterling and Trossard as a front three. But I'm not necessarily confident or, you know, comfortable with that always being the case, because then you have nothing senior coming off the bench in a game where you need some extra energy or extra nous. And so maybe if we change the structure or offer an opportunity to a younger player, then you can have a Sterling or, you know, I say a senior player like a 17-year-old Nwaneri is ridiculous, but someone who's got more senior experience maybe in certain games.
Rory, what do you think?
Yeah, I think early on against Leicester, probably against West Ham, I think it will be Trossard, Nwaneri, Sterling. We've seen that once away at Girona, and that was Sterling off the left, Nwaneri off the right. So because I think we've done it once, that'll be the default. Okay, we know we can do that. We won that game. And then maybe on the training ground, when they get the opportunities, they will start looking at some different solutions. Marino as a centre forward is something that I've heard, which, look, you know, you're at the point where you've got to try something. And so, like you said, other than changing the structure, which personally I wouldn't, I feel like we've still got, you know, our strongest back four with Ben White coming back as well. We've still got our strongest midfield. I think you probably leave those as they are, knowing that we won't concede many goals, and then you just figure out how you're going to score goals. But yeah, it's like Clive said, there is a level of excitement, I suppose, about finding out what the solution is going to be.
So then let's throw some names into that. You just mentioned Marino. What players do we think will be deployed into some attacking positions?
I think systemically, what have we done this season? So remember when we lost Odegaard, we all did that 4-4-2 thing with 2 double false nines. I agree with Tom. I think you should keep one of your strikers on the bench to change up. And I think I could see that potentially happening with Odegaard and Trossard centrally, and maybe one wide player in Ethan on one side, and then do something on the left-hand side, whether that be Zinchenko, whether that be Tierney. I do think the introduction, I've got a feeling of Calafiori, this may benefit him from a left-back perspective, because it's not always where you start, it's where you finish. And he does not stand in position, right? He just goes. And I think his ability to smell a goal, just to know when to arrive, is going to be really important. And that's how I think they're going to use Marino to do that late in games. His ability to arrive in those areas, rather than start him there, is how you arrive in those areas. So I do think there's some really good options, you know, to when Ben White gets up to speed, not yet, you can see almost double fullbacks on each side. And I think that would be quite good, because as long as the guy in the front is more the attacking fullback. So I see Timber as maybe more attacking and more of a carrier to be ahead of a Ben White and really travel up there. I just think that there are so many solutions, but none of them are ideal. But we are where we are, right? So that's why we talk about these solutions. So it's just where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at younger players, we've seen a few this season given, fits and spurts. Nathan Butler-Oyedeji came off the bench to be fair, he was standing on the sidelines for longer than he actually got on the pitch that day. But he did come off the bench, and he is 22, same age as Calafiori, believe it or not. And we describe him as a youngster. You've got Ismail Kabia, who also came off the bench early in the season, more of a wide player. And then you're looking at the under-21s, you've got a striker, Keon Edwards, that's there. You've got somebody on the bench who's perhaps even more highly rated in Andre Harriman-Anous as well, who's very highly rated too. But I agree that you need to be careful still with these young guys. Yes, I think it's an opportunity for more exposure, but there's a responsibility of not hurrying them in and then killing their careers because they have a bad substitute or cameo appearance. I remember me and Clive were talking earlier in the season about Winery and being careful with him, because if you throw them into a certain game too soon, and they get a clattering or they make a few mistakes, that's all that fans then have as their opinion of that player. And coaches as well at senior level, your first opportunity, if you don't take it, that can be quite a big thing to come back from. So you have to be really conscious of that.
Yeah, I think there are some elements of the attack that we've still got that will function. So like the right-hand side, Ødegaard, Waneri, and either White or Timber, we know that as a pocket will still produce output. We know that sort of the ball in from the corner of the box that we see from that side a lot of the time. We can still do that, and you can still have Rice and Marino arriving at the back post. So I still think there are plenty of solutions that we've got that won't necessarily rely on Sterling suddenly popping up with 5 or 10 goals before the end of the season, which you hope that he can do. But other than that, we've still got Declan Rice and Gabriel, so we can just win as many corners as possible. There are all sorts of means of winning those corners. So, yeah, look, we'll find a solution, hopefully. And if we don't, then Win the Dog can have a cap.
More corners. Clive, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do the club only have themselves to blame for this?
You can't help but feel this is a little bit self-inflicted. You gotta say it. The thing is, when you have violent agreement amongst Arsenal fans, you have a problem, right? So everybody said, we need another forward, And you get through a really tough, I think it's 11 games in 36 days and 9 games in January. You get through that period and you can see how this works, can't you? You can see how they arrived at the situation. We've got 7 games between now and the start of April, and we just had 9 in 1 month. So it's gonna ease up. If we can just get these people rested and refreshed, we can maybe go forward with this. We lose Martinelli straight away. A bit of a sign, but it's a bit late now. Then we lose Havertz, so we're in a bit of a problem. I do think it's very difficult because we all want another forward. There are names out there, but none of us are really convinced by any of the names that were available. But we still wanted somebody. So you have to make a decision. Do I need to protect the players who are here, or do I look for a strategic long-term solution? And I think they tried the strategic solutions that weren't available and maybe underestimated the impact on the players that have carried us through a very tough January. And now that risk has manifested. We've got 4 of our top boys out. And now we have to manage at least the next 3 games from a league perspective until potentially Saka and Martinelli come back. So you can't say anything but we've done this to ourselves. We've taken a risk and it hasn't paid off. I'm hoping the longer-term ramifications around decisioning won't affect the unity and alignment within the club and between the club and the fan base. That would worry me, that really would.
So you mentioned Martinelli. Let's kind of look a little bit ahead. When he does come back, and obviously with Trossard in as well, which one do you think will play as a central striker in the bigger games?
I mean, Trossard is the most experienced there. We have seen Martinelli trialled there before. There was a period of time in the start of kind of first 2 years of Arteta's tenure where they actually did a lot of training with Martinelli as a centre forward, but it never led to him being picked over another option. So I think that Trossard is the most nailed on of the options that we have to play at centre forward, even when Martinelli returns. The other one, I think more likely maybe than Martinelli, is Waneri himself, because we've heard Arteta speak about his ability to play there. He's arguably, aside from Trossard, probably the best finisher that we've got. Although Trossard's finishing has been slightly off this season compared to last season. So there are 2 options there. The striker position is the unicorn for Arsenal. It's the area where we all know that we need that massive step up. So whoever's going to fulfil that void for the time being has got a massive responsibility. And for that to fall maybe on a 17-year-old, there is a level of uncomfortability I have with that. And I think I'd rather keep him in his more natural position in the wide area and allow the experience of Trossard to carry us through.
Yeah, I'd probably go Martinelli centrally, Trossard out wide, just because, based on this season especially, I'm more confident that Trossard would be able to create chances for Martinelli from out wide than Martinelli for Trossard from out wide. Think it would be slightly more balanced. But again, at that point, it sounds like Martinelli might not be coming back until after the international break, and you've got Saka coming back, theoretically, hopefully, at that point as well. So by then, we'll have more options. I just hope we don't sort of overuse the two of them when they come back.
Of course we will.
But only be like a month or two left, so hopefully. It's nuts, isn't it, that we're using words like hopefully, and we never dreamt that we would have to be sitting here in this position, especially in the month we're in now with so many people out.
It's been a season of every time we do something good, something bad happens. Even when we win 5-1 against City, we got told we didn't do that right. We got told off for celebrating. And so the moments of joy have been quite finite. If you're asking me, Trossard for me at the moment, he's the only one available. But I watched Bayern Munich play against Celtic this week, and the way they use Harry Kane centrally, I thought was quite interesting. He's like the central false nine striker, and they all move around him. And I quite like that thought process. It comes back to my feeling of it's not where you start, it's where you arrive to. So Trossard being the central cog, because he's very good at rolling off the back line and receiving it, turning around and creating. I love that about his game. It's not about him being the last pass guy. Get that build up through him, rotate around him, and then arrive into the box. I think if you're Arteta now, he's thinking, you know what I care about the most is where we play. I need to get up to the halfway line and dominate teams. And once I'm there, I've got enough people, good pros, to hopefully do a job in the area. So.
So let's talk about last night's game then and what it means for the title race. So Liverpool versus Everton. Clive, before James Tarkowski's thundered one into the top corner, where was your head at? Because that was an absolutely stunning goal.
Yeah, I'm pleased for Everton fans, first and foremost, for that memory they have in their ground against Liverpool. It would have been really tough for them to lose that game. I thought they deserved to actually win the game. And so it's actually so interesting to see Liverpool under a little bit of pressure. The serenity has disappeared slightly, and I quite enjoyed that. Before the goal, I was just hopeful like anybody else. When the goal came, it's almost like, oh, great, they've scored. Now the gap's reduced, and we're talking about playing Mikel Marino at centre forward. the two don't compute, right? So yeah, it's just it's a really nice football moment. Let's take our Arsenal hats off. I'm really pleased for Everton for definite.
Yeah, we'll just take our Arsenal hats off just for a little moment.
Yeah.
It's hard to not, dream when you see that scoreline. It's hard to not get sucked into it. So I get it, but I can't help but keep my feet firmly on the ground and look at Arsenal's situation and 7 points to a Liverpool side who have simply just not had the same misfortune that we've had this season, not just with injuries, but with decisions and with the controversies that Arsenal have gone through as well this season. It's night and day between the two clubs. And that doesn't take away as well from the work that Arne Slot has done. He has done an excellent job taking on from Jurgen Klopp, inheriting a very good team, but then taking that and extracting arguably more than Jurgen Klopp did last season with that side. So you need luck in title races, and Arsenal haven't had that so far. If they are to win the league this season, which is a very small percentage chance of happening, unfortunately, they're going to need things like last night to happen over and over again. You're going to need teams to look at Liverpool as a team that can be got at, and I think teams have done that this season. Liverpool haven't really blown many sides away. When you look at teams that they've beaten, the points that they've picked up, those teams are doing a fairly good run in those games. And there's a lot of games that they haven't really deserved to win. I remember the game at the Emirates earlier in the season. Arsenal were the better side in that game and deserved more from that 2-2 draw. So I think sides looking at that Everton result will think, well, if we're down the further end of the table, we need to pick up points. We can do that against that Liverpool side.
Yeah, I was really surprised at kind of how emotional Liverpool were, especially at the end of the game. That's a tough away game for them that they've got out of the way. It's a point, which they wanted all three in, but I think a couple of the decisions at the end of the game probably did go against them. But they weren't that outrageous for Slot to be bursting onto the pitch, getting a straight red card, the assistant coach getting a straight red card it did feel almost unnecessarily emotional from them, and the hope is that that is a crack beginning to show. I'd be looking at it if I was Liverpool going, well, I'm 7 points clear of a team that, you know, effectively don't have a front three, but they've got some difficult games coming up in the, you know, four games in the next, whatever it is, 11 days that are tough on paper. So, yeah, all we can do is sit back and hope and pray.
So how much do you think that goal really changed the landscape?
I think Liverpool targeted this game. They rested a lot of players against Plymouth, and they thought, you know what, we can chin Arsenal in this game. We can go 9 points clear. They start to look internally, feel sorry for ourselves because we got no forwards. And that emotionally, I think this game was a real marker. But Liverpool had it in their hands, and then they lost it. So that's probably what brought the anger and sort of emotion towards the end. And by the way, I like to see that. I got no issues with it. I liked it. I really enjoyed it from both sides. And I don't like seeing managers being sent off, if I'm honest with you, because I think it's too big a price to pay for not being on the sideline. But the rest of the game I thought was really good. So it's a little window, it's a little crack in the window, right? But as we say, our feet are on the ground, aren't they, Tom? They're on the ground.
Yes, of course.
Well, was it encouraging to see Arnie Slot sent off and Liverpool rolled up? Was it slightly encouraging?
It's always good to see that. You know, you want your rivals to be unsettled. You want your rivals not to be in a composed manner, because that's what Arsenal have faced the last 2 seasons, is a very clinical, consistent juggernaut of a side in Manchester City that have every attribute of a side that have won 5 of the last 6 titles. This Liverpool team haven't done that. This Liverpool team have been us for a lot of the years that they've been chasing Man City, you know, just pipped to the post, putting on ridiculous levels of performance and output and points tallies and goal tallies and still not getting that reward that, you know, usually would give you that reward. So I think that to have that doubt in their minds, to have Arsenal as well after what has been obviously a good break, but gutting to lose one of your key players and a very big member of the dressing room as well in Kai Havertz, that they'll have looked at that result, and I guarantee you all those Arsenal players would have been watching that game, and when that goal went in, I guarantee you that they would have been celebrating it. So, and then rightly they should do, because it should give them encouragement and it should give them that hope and momentum to go into the next game. And if you start to pick up points despite losing all of these players, that can sometimes give you more of a mental boost than having everybody fit and turning a side over.
Rory, did you celebrate?
I did. It was reserved, but no, I do think it's interesting that, you know, the kind of touchline tyrant that Mikel Arteta is made out to be. I don't think I've ever seen him lose the plot to that degree immediately after the game, to storm onto the pitch and get himself sent off. So, you know, maybe it is a bit of a crack in Arne Slot's character, because it has been pretty smooth sailing for him so far. And I do think he maybe looks at that performance and thinks, well, that was my full-strength team. We really didn't create much. They had a whole week off, which cost me and us in the FA Cup. I think it was a disappointing performance, and yeah, that reaction is perhaps telling.
Hey, look, Mikel Arteta, he doesn't wait to the end to get his cards. He gets them in the middle of the game, so does it in style. So Liverpool have a very, very heavy schedule this month, including some very tough away games. So they've got Wolves at home on Sunday, Villa away next Wednesday, then City away on the following Sunday, and then Newcastle at home after that. What do we think of that?
This is the moment, isn't it? This is the moment, and they know it. And that is why they rested the players at Plymouth, because that would have an ongoing effect going forward. And I thought they were right to do so, because they really want to focus on the league. They're in the Carabao Cup final, so they've got a cup final sorted out. They can afford to give up the FA Cup. They probably thought they wanted to stay in it, but I don't think they were crying too much about going out the FA Cup. So this is the moment right now. So all we can do is just go to Leicester and win, and then try to just keep... My thing is just stay in the room. You never know how someone truly is until they're under pressure. If you're at 9 points behind, they're not under pressure. Liverpool, if you describe Liverpool's season this year, the word you use is serenity. Everything's been so serene. Everything. The way they've been cosseted by us not doing our job, by Man City falling away, by a lot of the media looking after them and highlighting the issues of other teams and not their issues. But right now, they've got a few creaks. The left back's a situation that's a problem for them. Trent is not fully fit. Connor Bradley?
Bradley, yeah.
Mate, he's a nice player, but he's a yellow card every game. He's a yellow card every game. So they're lacking fullback stability. Every team's got its weakness, right? So let's see how they go.
Yeah, I think from an Arsenal point of view, you know, we've got we've also got some difficult games in the near future. Yes, we've got Leicester away and West Ham at home. You would, on the board, say Arsenal have to pick up maximum points. But then you go to a Nottingham Forest side that are very, very good this season.
Yeah.
You've then got a game against Manchester United at Old Trafford. They're Man United this season, but that historically has been a game that's been tough for Arsenal other than in recent years. And then you've got a Chelsea side coming to the Emirates as well, a side that, of course, already took points off Arsenal this season. So I'm looking at those fixtures and I'm thinking if Arsenal can get through that period, and in those games, of course, Liverpool drop points to a Villa or a City, and that gap begins to close. You look at the run that Arsenal have got after that, and the run is much kinder. So if the gap is closed, if it's closed up after the next 4 to 5 games, I think Arsenal will be in a very interesting position with likely by that point Martinelli back and very close to having Bukayo Saka back as well.
Yeah, I think we've still, as the team that's chasing, we've still got the kind of the ace up the sleeve almost of going to Anfield, which is by no means a guaranteed win or anything, but it's an opportunity. So with 3 games to go, which is where that game lies, if we can get to within 3 points, then there's an opportunity for us to, at least it can be back in our own hands. You say, well, you've got to go and win at Anfield, but we'll have Saka back, we'll have Martinelli back. It's possible. So, if you're looking at maybe Liverpool dropping 4 points to close that gap down to 3 within the next few games, Villa away, very easily a draw, City away, Newcastle at home. These are games that very comfortably could end up in draws. So last night's game provided just an opportunity.
I'm sure there's a club, isn't there, that won at Anfield and won a title.
Can't remember.
Do you remember that?
Might be one.
Is there one team that did that?
Might be one.
The one where 500,000 Arsenal fans were at.
Yes, millions were there.
Do you want to say it for us? Go on.
Oh, I was there. It was 5 years before I was born, but I was there.
Yeah, we like to hear it. We like to hear it. You know what? At the end of the day, after last night's performance, anything can happen in the Premier League. Anything can happen in football games. And after what we saw last night, you were saying, every team has a weakness. If this is something or a fracture in their season, then let it happen and let it see where it goes.
Absolutely. I think Liverpool have been better than us this year. I think they have. They've been better up to this point. My issue is I don't think they've been 9 points better than us. I think I'm still not over those 2 red cards early in the season, Trossard and Rice. Just give me 2 of those points. Just give me 2 points. And I think that's more of a true gap. And if, say, we're 5 points back, then it really is a situation where 2 different results and you're back, right? So that's my biggest issue for the season, but I can't change that, no matter how many times I talk about it.
I think, is there a question you think about, I know we're all talking about the title race right now, but with Arsenal being as depleted as there are, is there an element of tempering expectations at all? Or do you think you just need to keep up that?
I think we just ride it until the wheels fall off at this point. There's no, we can sit here and dwell on it, but ultimately, you back the team as much as you can, and if the wheels do fall off, we probably turn around and go, well, we probably should have expected this. But until then, why not ride it out?
Yeah. Why not just keep going?
Yeah, exactly.
Bukayo Saka, Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, even Emile Smith-Rowe, Joe Willock and Alex Iwobi. Arsenal's Hale End Academy has produced a multitude of Premier League stars, but there's a new kid on the block, 15-year-old Max Dowman. Clive, there's been a lot of hype surrounding Max. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
I'm trying to be calm here. I have seen him play. So I went to see a pre-season game this year near where I live, and he was 14 then, and he was still
so young.
He was still the best player on the pitch, playing against guys with sideburns, right? So it was amazing watching him play against adults and dominate the game. And he's very talented. The first thing you notice is his balance, his ability to almost play in the future. He knows what's coming, and he just deals with it, deals with the ball. He does it all with a level of cool. I mean, he's a very exciting player. He's very young. He's just turned 15. He's not even doing his GCSEs until next summer, right? So that tells you how young he truly is. So we have to try not to be too hyped about it, but it is incredibly difficult. I mean, when you see him play, and the words I've used before, it's like watching Roger Federer play tennis. He just looks natural. He looks so natural. So if he physically grows and develops as he should do, because he looks really good physically already, it's a very exciting future ahead of him.
Tom, what have you got to say? There was a lot of head movement and...
Yeah, there's always part of me, he's 15. And I've seen this before with Charlie Patino as an example, where, and I'm not saying they're equal in ability or whatever, just I'm purely looking at it from kind of a descriptive standpoint and from a social standpoint, that we as Arsenal fans have seen it so many times before where hype is thrown onto an individual of an incredibly young age, and it doesn't sometimes go the way that we wanted or expected, or maybe even that the coaches and their representatives expected. And I think there's an element, again, of being conscious about protecting these individuals and these children. They are children at the end of the day. And I've asked Mikel Arteta about Max Dowman myself in a press conference where I watched the training session before the Girona game. And he's been included in senior training a lot. And Mikel Arteta you could see there was frustration that he hasn't been able to utilise maybe Max Dowman already, because there's legislation in place which means that he cannot at this point, because he doesn't turn 16 until the next season, which is when the legislation allows you to use those players. So I expect in the summer, in pre-season, that we'll probably see some more of Max, but I am very conscious of wanting to, protect as well as be appreciative of the talent that exists.
Do we kind of wish maybe at some point he could have been eligible to play, or is it he's still too young and we'll wait and see?
We might be fielding the under-16s next week, the way things are going.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you've always got to protect a player like that. We saw Waneri made his debut at 15, but obviously he would have been turning 16 that season. But even after that debut, we didn't really see him until 2 years later, which was this season. So there's always an element of managing expectations, of managing hype. I think it's a really good sign that, he's training with the senior team when he's playing in the under-18s. He no longer has the physical advantage that I think he did when he was a couple of years younger. So now he is competing and outperforming a lot of these players purely based on talent. So I would expect the path will be similar to Ethan's. I think it's, give them a taste of what's to come, make sure they stay at the club, which is, a very challenging thing to do, and then manage that over the next couple of years. Fortunately, in midfield, our depth is decent, so it's not like we need to rush him through. And it's just an exciting one to keep an eye on.
So could we be looking at a first-team lineup in, a couple of years' time with 4 academy graduates?
Quite easily. Quite easily. And they're a good group, aren't they? They're a good group. I mean, you don't often get this very often when you get 2 in the same year get through to the first year and to be that good. There's a good chance that potentially that Miles may be in the England squad really quickly. And that is a massive credit to him and his development, and shows how quickly he is. Again, watched him pre-season, he looked really good. Now he looks amazing. So things can change very quickly. So yeah, I just love the excitement of seeing young people develop and get to this level after years of sacrifice to get here. And we should be all excited for all of them. So yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the benefit that they've got is that they've got an excellent group around them. I spent an evening with Miles Lewis-Skelly's mother, Marsha Lewis, who was doing a talk with parents about kind of the parents of young talent coming through, that she's, done a lot of work with number one club, number one fan club. Yeah. And having that presence behind a young player that is so savvy and knows, the right pathway, how to protect an individual like that. And then you've got somebody like Per Mertesacker as the head of your academy, who is also extremely, nuanced in the way in which he approaches academy graduates and, takes such care after those young players. I was listening to Mehmet Ali, the under-21 boss, speaking in Dubai while the club were away. He talked about how provisions are in place educationally for some of these young players while they're out there, because obviously some of them are missing school. And there is such a care about the young players coming through at Arsenal, and it is a testament to what the club are doing with these players, that now 2 of them in Waneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly have broken through this season.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable. You think about, obviously, the prospect of maybe having 4 of them in the team at the same time at some point in the future, but even now, theoretically, we can have Waneri, Lewis-Skelly and Saka in the same team, and none of them would be out of place. And to be competing at the top where we are, with that number of homegrown players that have come through your academies, even the top academies with the most money spent throughout the development process in City or Chelsea, you know, you just don't see that many players coming through at the same time in the same squad. And even from a business perspective, it saved us an awful lot of money. You know, if we'd not had Waneri and Lewis Skelly this season, God knows where we'd be. And you know, that's a significant amount of money saved in the future.
This weekend, we face Leicester City away from home. So joining us now is the Athletics Leicester City correspondent, Rob Tanner. Rob, welcome to Inside Gooners.
Good to be on.
Very good to be on, indeed. So, Rob, where are Leicester City side right now?
They're in a tough position at the moment. Obviously, everybody expected this season to be difficult, coming back into the Premier League and trying to re-establish yourself after the shock of relegation 2 years ago. But it's been a really tough campaign for them. They spent a lot of money, well, comparatively for themselves historically, but 50 million under Steve Cooper, and then sacked Steve Cooper after 12 games. Ruud van Nistelrooy's come in now. He had a run of 7 straight defeats. Spurs helped them out by allowing them to get a win a couple of games ago. But it's been tough this season, and I think you'll find as well on Saturday there's a few fans protesting as well against some of the members of the board. So yeah, it's not a harmonious place to be at the moment.
Yeah, no, I can imagine so. Fans do tend to do that. But then, is there any extra hope against Arsenal's depleted forward line, do you think, over the weekend?
Well, yeah, possibly. I mean, you're always looking for a little pluses in terms of injuries and that to your opposition. But it's still a very, very strong Arsenal squad that's coming to King Power. And as I said, Leicester aren't in the best place themselves. They have been boosted by the return of Jamie Vardy. Obviously, he scored quite a few goals against Arsenal down the years and nearly wore the Arsenal shirt. And a few others have come back from injury. But it's still a squad that's really struggling really to get going.
Clive, you have a question?
Yeah, so obviously I thought Leicester played a little bit better against Manchester United, actually. I thought the performance was quite good. Since Cooper's gone and Ruud's come in, have you seen any sort of stylistic changes with how you're playing?
Not too many, really. I mean, there's more attention to possession than there was to Cooper. But you're right, the Man United performance was an improvement. I think a big reason for that was the return of Wilfred Ndidi into central midfield. I mean, he's quite an important figure for them. He adds a bit of physicality to their midfield. Him and Bouba Samare, I thought, looked really strong against the United midfield in that game, and that gives them a little bit of hope because they've got to start digging in now. I mean, they do knock the ball around. They've got some nice technical players like Bilal El Khanous, Facundo Buonanotte, who's on loan from Brighton, but they need a bit of steel because they're in a real dogfight to survive in the Premier League, and Ndidi's going to be important to that.
Rob, I was at the game earlier on in the season between Arsenal and Leicester, and a lot of people before the game, I think, pegged it as being quite a simple one for Arsenal. It didn't turn out to be that at all. Do you think that will give Leicester encouragement for the turnaround at the King Power?
Yeah, I remember that day. I mean, the amount of goals they conceded defensively, that's been their problem all season. They've only had 1 clean sheet, and that was against Bournemouth at home. So it's been a real problem for them in both boxes, actually. But they did show a lot of spirit early in the season, a lot of comebacks into games, and they've carried that on. At Tottenham, they came from a goal behind to win as well. There is some character in this side. They don't give up, but it's just whether they've got the quality.
Rory, I have a question for you. How worried are you about Arsenal's depth from the bench?
Very worried. It's one of these situations where we can probably predict the front three because it's the only 3 attackers that we've got, unless Arteta does something rogue. But then if we're struggling, you know, as we were in the game earlier in the season at 2-2, and you look to the bench, who are you going to bring on? I mean, it's going to have to be either one of the youngsters that has basically played no senior minutes, or Kieran Tierney at left wing, or, you know, something that we've not seen before. So there's a fear, I suppose, of if we're in that situation, is there even a solution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a good point, isn't there? Is there even a solution? And then, Rob, back over to you. How do you see the game going?
I think I hope the fan protest doesn't affect the players because it's not about them. It's as I said, it's directed to certain members of the board. But if they go out there and show a bit of courage early doors, they're very slow starters, but if they can get off to a good start, they can cause Arsenal difficulties. But I really can't see anything other than an Arsenal victory, unfortunately.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I like that one. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and Enjoy the game.
Thank you.
So is this game important to have a good performance and set the tone post-Dubai trip?
Oh, it's key. It's key because although we're depressed about having no strikers at all, if you win a game, that depression subsides for a while, And so, yeah, it's really important. But of course, Jamie Vardy's managed to get himself fit for this game. He's somebody who always plays well against us. I looked at their team that played against Manchester United. It's funny when you're not sure about your own team, the other team looks really good. Really, oh my God, he looks good. But they've scored, I think they've scored 25 goals, a goal a game on average. So basically, we should be fine. But let's just get it done, shall we?
Look, I haven't had to get the tissues out for anyone today. We haven't had any tears. We've been upset. We haven't had tears. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I get a notification saying that someone else has got injured, you might. I think, this is one of those games that, and I think it's that old adage that Arteta always subscribes to, which is just take it one game at a time. And if Arsenal can get a win in this game away from home at a Leicester side that, as Clive's pointed out, has had some good performances this season. They had a good performance against us earlier in the season. They took 2 very late goals for us to get a result that probably reflected more of the performance. But we just need to get that result. I'd take a 1-0 all day long. Just 1-0, park the bus if that's what it needs. And I think maybe that will be a template this season because we haven't got many goal scorers in the side at the moment. If Arsenal get a lead in a game, they might just shut up shop and accept that they've got that lead. And I imagine with the players that we've got, we're more than equipped to do that because we've done that to many sides in the past. So, I'm, as we talked earlier about, excited about the lineup and what we're going to go with. I'm excited about how the players are going to cope with the absences that we've got. And I'm excited to see if we do go a goal up, just how close to the 6-yard box we can sit back.
Look, I think for this game, like I said, we saw this front three against Girona. It was not bad. Yeah. We've got the full strength squad behind it, which even against Girona we didn't. We'd rotated quite heavily even behind them. So I'm looking at it going, we should win this. I'm not blaming the lack of attackers if we don't win this. And if we do, and if we could do it, playing relatively good football and fluid football, maybe we look at it and we go, oh, maybe this isn't going to be so bad, and we get our hopes up, and then they'll ultimately be dashed elsewhere. But it's an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity, especially for Trossard, Sterling, and Waneri, to step up and say, look, stop doubting us. We can do this. So
on Sterling, how big of a month is this for him? Can he find some form?
I think he needs to play off the left, and he's going to get time to do that, I think, due to the fact we've got no one else. So I think he's going to get time to play on the left. For me, he's not a 90-minute player at the moment, but he can do something off from the left-hand side. He can be quite bright, and he has been since the moment he first came. But he's been used on the right a lot because that's where we needed him, and he's not as effective on that side. So if he can do things on left, particularly early, and then we can bring on one of our 5 fit left-backs that we have warming up, we can bring them on, and because that's really our real strength is in the squad. And so, he's going to, if he can just give us half an hour of good play, so we can get ahead, and then we can defend it out.
Guy needs a goal. He just needs a goal.
This could be the making of him.
Yeah, he just needs a moment. And, I've been very critical of his performances this season because they've been worthy of scrutiny in a lot of moments. There's been times I've been sitting watching Jorginho shout over to Sterling to get into a more pressing, friendly position, or seeing, I can't remember the exact game, there was a moment where we had a throw-in on the right-hand side and 5 players were calling Sterling over from the other side of the pitch to get over and just to tuck in. Yeah. And it's those moments where you're kind of like, oh, come on, Raheem, you need to, especially when you've arrived and the message you've sent the fans is, you're going to see the best from me. I think that will go down in infamy if indeed we don't see some more from Sterling. But it's a moment for him to step up. He's a serial Premier League winner. He's won things that players in his team dream of winning. And there's also been a lot of adversity that some younger players that have faced that I'm frankly very glad that Sterling's been there. I saw a video that you did on Miles Lewis-Skelly, and, having Sterling there, I think would be really beneficial for some of these young players. But now it's not just what he's doing off the pitch. He needs to do it on the pitch as well.
Yeah, I think it's a big moment for everyone involved in that deal, to be honest. I think it's big for Sterling. He needs to prove that he's still capable of playing at the top level because he's going back to Chelsea in the summer and will probably want another move away from there. And it's important for the people that made the deal happen. We all went into last summer thinking we need at least one attacker, and we were served Raheem Sterling on deadline day. You look back at it now, this is the time where you have to prove that that was worth it, prove that that was the right decision and not just a blind panic. So, yeah, it's important.
So for proving things, for Arsenal to succeed, I want you all to pick one player to have an absolutely stunning month coming up.
The player I would choose would be Martin Odegaard. I choose him because in recent history at Arsenal, when he plays well, we tend to play well. And he has got ability to dominate the whole game and basically paint the picture he wants to paint. But we also need him to score. And so he needs to may not try to do too many jobs and really be around the areas where we need his ball striking ability and to improve in those. And he's done a couple of goals recently. So I'm looking at him really to really change his identity slightly. And we use our build-up and other players, but try to get him in the areas where we can really hurt opposition and create a quality last chance pass or a shot. So he'll be my choice.
Yeah, it's Clive stole my answer. It's absolutely Martin Odegaard. To be different, I will say Raheem Sterling. And you know, if Sterling can have a big month, that'll do wonders for him. It would change the narrative surrounding him quite a lot. And it would just give, I think, Arteta a bit of a break as well in terms of the selection and being able to trust in a player to start matches and play more minutes. I think it won't come immediately. I think it'll be a gradual process still. But the more games he starts, the more opportunities he'll have. And as I said, one goal could change it all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Ethan Nwaneri, and I don't want to put pressure on the 17-year-old shoulders, but, you know, pressure makes diamonds and all that. And I think this is an opportunity where I think he could, look, there's already so much hype around him, but he could carry Arsenal through this month in terms of output. And if he does, I think suddenly you go, okay, you know, this 17-year-old's just carried a title challenging team on his back in an attacking sense. And that'll really, you know, blow the lid off how good he can be. And I think he's got the ability to do it, I really do.
We watched a 16-year-old do that for Spain at the Euros. Yeah. So, you know, it's very possible.
And then the Champions League. Can you win that without a proper centre forward?
Well, you know what? Come
on, let's just boost this up.
I'm an optimistic fan generally until the game starts, and then I get scared. And but honestly, watching Real Madrid play against Man City and seeing their pace up front and seeing what they did, I suddenly realised, oh, okay, that's quite a high level. That's actually quite a high level. So that did sort of make me think, okay, that's going to be really, really hard. Again, it's much like the league approach. It's literally almost game by game. We do have some tools about how we play, particularly our restarts and set pieces, that I think some teams in Europe will really struggle with, generally struggle with. And so, you know, the goals in Europe, they really matter. They change the emotion of a game. So, yeah, at the moment, let's just see how we look and what our team set is going to be. Because Tom just said something there about notifications around fitness. If we were to lose somebody else, where would we be? You know,
just turn your notifications off.
Yeah, so you never can tell till the team's selected.
Exactly, we can never tell until the team is selected. So, well, anyway, guys, that is all we've got time for this week. A huge thanks to Clive, Tom, and Rory. We'll see you next week after a win at Leicester, and remember, trust the process.